Hey, that's our show for the day. Listen, before we shut down here, I want to talk to all the folks on the website to give you a little idea of what we do around here. There's Patrick here with me, who kind of is the guy that runs the board back there. He's the nuts and bolts behind this show. I do all the talking. Patrick, when they talk about the producer, the guy that runs the board, just what do you do back there while I'm on the air talking to all these folks?
I answer the phone calls, make sure that commercials go right, and make sure you get your background music.
Okay, and we can talk too, and with all those earphones, the listeners can't hear it, but they can hear me then talking, then can't they?
Yeah.
Okay, make sure I got that adjusted there. We can talk to each other and carry on, and they don't know all the conversations, so you can give me instructions and tell me, hey, so and so is calling, or we're coming back on the air in 15 seconds. There's a whole lot of give and take going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Well, thank you. You go back to work, and I'll keep talking to these folks a few minutes, okay? And just want to give you a little idea and background about what you do. You know, the easy part of the radio show for me, quite frankly, is to just do the 3-hour talk show or itself, or 2 hours, whatever. Sometimes I'm on 2 hours, sometimes I'm on 3 hours. But that's the easy part. The tough part is preparing for those 3 hours. I bring a lot of information in, having been in public life for so long, and bring all that in when I talk. But the fact remains, if you're going to be knowledgeable about issues involving Louisiana, the nation, then you've got to do a lot of reading. I get up in the morning and read everything from the Baton Rouge paper, the New Orleans paper, the New York Times. I read the Washington Post, do that online. I get the Times thrown to my house. I read the Los Angeles Times, a real good paper I find. I'll read a scattering of state newspapers online, like the Shreveport Times, to get an idea of what's happening in North Louisiana, check over in Lafayette, maybe Lake Charles. So you get a real sense of what the issues are that affects so many of our folks down this way. And then I always like to see a sense of the national news, because so many national issues come back and hit the focus right on us. If you'll check the columns I write every week, you'll see that I try to see how Louisiana fits into the national scope, the national picture. Are we different? Are we better? Which isn't too often, unfortunately. Are we in the same ballpark? Are the things that are happening in Washington, D.C., or the parts of the world that hit us home? And so that's the focus of my website, and to some degree my radio show. I just don't talk about the local political scenario or beat up on this politician or that. I try to put it in perspective, because we're in this for the long run. The changes that Louisiana needs are not going to take place overnight. You and I know that. It's going to take us a long period of time. And so as a consequence, I try to put that perspective in what I write, bring my experience of some 30 years in public life into the mix, and then try to convey to you, the listener or the reader on the website, just what you may, give you some food for thought. I like to think that after a radio show, you say, hey, I enjoyed what Brown had to say, but I learned something also. I took away some information I just didn't have in the past. So for whatever it's worth, I hope that helps you. I want you to talk to Patrick and see what happens. I usually get in the studio maybe an hour and a half before the show. If it's an interesting topic, I'll do what I'm doing now. I'll do a little webcast. You'll see a lot of my highlights of the show on this website. I'll do a little preparation, get the studio ready. I like to have my own computer here to take emails that come in, that I'll check with the producer. I might want to do a little copying of what the latest news has to say, and a variety of things like that. I fix my coffee. I keep a little warmer where I keep my coffee there, or the hot tea that I'll make during the show, and I just get a little sense of what's happening. If I'm in New Orleans, I'm in a different studio than I'm up here in Baton Rouge, and so you have to kind of change it and rearrange it like you want. So about an hour and a half before I get in the studio, and after spending maybe an hour or two at home or on my office computer, getting updated about what we're going to talk about. And then after it's over, it takes me about 15 minutes to break everything down. So if it's a 2 or 3 hour show, really you're talking about a lot more. And when I'm doing it in New Orleans, as I was for 2.5 years, as most of you listeners there know, I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to New Orleans, getting in the studio, having some idea what to talk about, because I checked the websites the night before, but then having to get updated on things that happened overnight. And then I'd finish up at, I guess, 11 o'clock off that show, maybe meet with my producer, get an idea of the next day's show, do a little paperwork, answer some email, head back home, usually stop for lunch, and it was 4 o'clock before I got home. So a 3 hour show was a 12-hour investment in time. You can see what I'm talking about because of the time you catch in. I'll try to do an occasional little segment like this to tell you what I'm talking about in the show. Hey, glad you're listening. Look over my site for some of the fun. If you haven't done so, by the way, scroll down to the bottom of my website and look at some of the articles. I find some crazy articles from all over the world. Some of them are very poignant and directed to us. Others are just a lot of fun to read. Some are very sad to read. But if you haven't been checking in that feature, I hope you will. Have a good week, and I'll talk to you next week right here at JimBrownLA.com.